Hi, my name is Mike Bird and I'm a reference librarian here at the Auburn Hills campus of WMU Cooley Law School. This is the first installment of the Library Minute, a series where we will be talking about various study aids and other secondary sources at the library, which can assist you in preparing for your first year classes. In this episode, I'd like to establish some baseline context by talking a bit about a type of source that you're already fairly familiar with, I assume, your casebooks. By now, even if you're a completely new law student, you've already seen a law school casebook. You've probably already purchased them for your classes and hopefully have completed your first reading assignments. Having done so, you've probably got a decent idea of what to expect from the format of these titles. A brief introduction to a topic from the author, followed by an opinion establishing the legal rule in the words of a judge. Now, if you're anything like I was when I was a new law student, this might strike you as a completely insane way to communicate this information. Why not just tell you the rule to avoid any confusion about what the judge is saying? After all, you're new at this. Are they just trying to trip you up? Well, this is why I wanted to talk about casebooks. As with any graduate level education track, it's important that you, as a lawyer, understand how to read the primary sources of your discipline. This ends up being one of the main differences between graduate education and that which you've done before. The expectation that you'll be working in primary sources, not secondary. You'll need to be able to review the material itself with enough comprehension to develop your own thoughts, not simply to form impressions based on what other authors say about those sources. For instance, if you were to pursue a PhD in Chinese literature, you'd be expected to read novels in their original Chinese rather than English translation. If you studied a hard science, you'd need to read and comprehend other scientists' published experiments, rather than trust third parties to tell you what those experiments accomplished. This cuts to the core of what we mean by learning to think like a lawyer. We have our own primary sources, cases, statutes, regulations, and a large part of the expertise we as lawyers bring to bear is the comfort with which our training and experience allows us to navigate all this stuff. But that comfort doesn't come out of nothing. You need practice, and whether or not it's the best way to give you that practice, forcing you to learn the basics by reading appellate cases is, at the very least, an historically effective way to get lawyers in training comfortable reading this stuff. I mention all this to maybe help you understand that you're not crazy if you find casebooks intimidating. Casebooks are not the simplest or most obvious way to teach someone brand new information, and you wouldn't be wrong to find the format a little off-putting. I know I did when I was new at this. Just be aware that the authors are trying to accomplish two things at once. One, they're trying to introduce you to the subject and provide you the information you need to know, same as you'd expect from any textbook. But they're also trying to force you to practice reading judicial opinions for comprehension at the same time. I want you to keep this in mind as we go through various secondary sources in future installments, because one thing these secondary sources all have in common is the elimination of the latter goal to focus on the former. Study aids typically don't reproduce the primary sources the way casebooks do, because they're focused on explaining the law as clearly and comprehensively as possible. The most important thing to remember is that your casebook's format is a baseline, and the other sources we'll be talking about all deviate from that baseline for specific academic or commercial reasons. There's a long history to this that's a little into the weeds for us to be talking about in these series. But I think you'll be well served by asking the following question whenever you're confronted with a new secondary source. How is this source different from my casebooks, and why? Finally, I do want to give a little bit of a warning. Even if you find that the study aids do a better job of explaining core concepts than your casebooks, and frankly they usually will, it's extremely important that you not neglect your assigned reading in those casebooks. Again, reading cases for comprehension is a core skill for lawyers, and you can't simply ignore that training just because you feel you're understanding the subject a little bit better from the study aid. We'll be talking about how best to balance this in future videos. For now, thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you again.